So, welcome everybody to Root to Rise Conversations, episode 1. I am Eleftheria, founder of Terra Jiva and the Root to Rise community. Root to Rise Conversations is a space where we gather with women who are quietly changing the world, not necessarily through louder voices, but through deeper roots. Together, we explore the journey, the turning points, and the wisdom that helps us to remember who we are. Today, I'm really honored to welcome Bridget Finklaire, author, speaker, founder of the Bone Circle, helping people to reconnect to soul purpose, intuition, love, and the life they came here to live. Welcome, Bridget. It is such an honor to have you here on the Root to Rise Conversations.
Eleftheria, thank you so much for inviting me. It's always fabulous to catch up with you, and I'm so excited about today. And thank you, everybody. It's beautiful to be here.
I always love to just start with a little grounding process. And so I'm just going to invite all of us to just gently close our eyes. If it feels right to you, just placing one hand gently on your heart. And just bring your full awareness just to the breath, the gentle rise and fall of the breath. And for a moment, just bringing all parts of yourself just back into presence, into this magnificent body that just moves you through your life. And together, we just take a deep, grounding belly breath in, following your own breath and capacity. Draw that breath to the top of your head. When you're ready, exhaling out with a deep sigh. And when you're ready, gently opening up your eyes. My first question for you, Bridget, is what has been bringing you alive recently? And if this season of your life had one single word, what would it be?
Beautiful question to start off with. What brings me alive recently is actually connection. Connection to friends, connection to other soul mates, soul sisters, other soul family, light workers, and seeing that rise in the world. As the world goes into chaos, we're seeing the light rise. We're seeing that light come in, people awakening, and that brings me great joy. I've also just become a grandmother, so I'm in this space of joy for this little boy that's just been born, albeit the other side of the world in Vietnam. I will see him soon. And I've been privileged to spend a couple of months with my daughter as well. And that was a very healing journey. And for both of us, very, very much feeling alive. And the second part of your question about what's a single word that kind of defines the space that I'm in now. Obviously, I'm the wise woman and the crone, but that's not a single word. I think it is wisdom, has to be the single word that would define where I'm at now.
Thank you. I'm also super curious to know about you, the woman. So when people read your biography and they meet the author and the teacher, I'm curious to learn who Bridget is behind all the titles. And so here are a few questions around that. My first question is, what did little you dream of?
Such a brilliant deep dive into what we are, because I think none of us really always know who we are really, and we can be in this hall of mirrors, this pendulum of thinking we're not enough, or thinking our true light is here. So the little child in me, I don't think really knew what she wanted to be, because the little child in me was quite crushed by my upbringing and by the way that my parents were. I just want to add that I have forgiven them completely, and that is the way forward with these things, and embraced them in love before they passed. But that little child was just kind of believing that her life was pretty normal and not understanding the bigger picture, not being aware of the bigger picture. And I guess really at the root of it, the little child in me wanted to please, wanted to serve, wanted to keep the peace. And it's taken a lot of unraveling and full circle to come back into doing that in a sovereign way rather than a wounded way.
I think you're really speaking to the majority of women. I think that's something that a lot of women experience. Thank you. Thank you for vulnerably sharing that.
My pleasure.
Was there something your younger self instinctively knew about life that you've spent your adulthood rediscovering?
I always felt that somehow I was different, not in a special way particularly, but that I didn't feel that I fitted in completely with everyone else. That made me feel small and vulnerable and disconnected as a child. I felt that I had to somehow conform to what society expected me to be. And I think we all go through a phase of doing exactly that, conforming to what is expected of us. But in later years, having done the work and uncovered all of that, I now embrace the fact that we're all different, actually. We all are part of this great weaving of life, part of the threads of the tapestry. And I now embrace my, my boldness, if you like, my crazy glasses and the way that I am. And just embrace, this is me. And I really loved, Eleftheria played a song just before we came on, and it's talking about, I'm here to be me, and thank you for being me. And I thought that was so appropriate, because very often we don't want to be me, we want to be somebody else, don't we? But actually,
Yes.
in the wisdom years, we embrace who we are and go for it. So I think that's been a thread through my life. There's probably many answers to that question, but I'll just give you a taster.
Thank you. And when do you most feel connected to yourself?
I feel most connected to myself when I'm still. So anything where I'm not distracted, where I'm walking in nature, where I'm sitting in meditation, or sitting in my garden listening to the birds, or I live in South Africa, as you know, and to go out into the bush and be with nature with a pair of binoculars, those things connect me back to who I am. But also anything that's creative, small creative acts, really bring me back to me, and they bring me fully present. So if I'm sort of painting something or repurposing a piece of furniture, or renovating something, it could be a crazy thing. I was talking to a friend about this the other day, like spraying the soap dish in my bathroom gold for the hell of it. Those are the sorts of things that bring me back to me, because it's me expressing me in small private ways.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. I often talk about in ancient Greek, there is 8 different words for love, and one of them is called meraki, which is that absolute joy where time and space disappears and you're just kind of present in the moment and joy just flows through you. And I think that's truly also where we find connection. And I hear that in what you're explaining around creativity and nature. Nature it just immediately pulls us back into presence. I think all of our senses open up, and we then remember that we are not separate from nature, but we're part of it.
Yeah, the ego dissolves in that moment and we feel the oneness.
Yes. So you've lived both in London and Cape Town. And my question is, how have place and landscape shaped the woman that you've become?
So shape and landscape, I think, are structures, underlying structures within our life, and structures within our lives shape us in the way that, for example, a riverbed shapes the river. So London is a very different container for me to Cape Town. London is very busy, it's a metropolis, it's in Europe, it's very cosmopolitan, people from all walks of life and all countries and colours and creeds are there. It's very busy, and I always loved it because as a child I found it very exciting and I wanted to go and live in London. So London shaped me more into the corporate me, and I went into more the masculine me. If we look at the heroine's journey, for example, that was me going on that road of trials with being in Harley Street, for example, and before that working in public relations and really being in the thick of it. So London for me is an exciting place. There's a lot of culture, there's a lot of life there, there's a lot of things you can do, a lot of people. And I love it, and I love the architecture, and I love being able to walk around at night and feel safe. And but it's a very busy life. It can be, to be successful in London, you need to work hard, and there's burnout on the edge of that. London also represented a huge friendship, a huge network of friends, which means that you're always busy and always doing something. Cape Town is very different. Cape Town's allowed me to soften. Cape Town has allowed me to bring out the divine feminine, or the feminine side of me. Even my hair has grown longer. I used to have it very short. It's moving away from the corporate and into more the spiritual rather than the material. Cape Town is a much slower pace. It's beautiful. You know, the nature is really restorative and very grounding, and it's enabled me through grounding into this beautiful land, which I always feel as if we're held by the hand of God here, and it's allowed me to ground into that vibration and grow more spiritually and become more awake, more aware, more conscious, and raise consciousness, raise vibration. Whereas London is too busy for that. London is more about career and getting along and doing things. It's fun. Cape Town, there's more stillness, there's more time for reflection, there's more time for wisdom.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing to me that I think the different phases that we go through as women, also different cultures, different places, pull and hold that part of our heroine's journey. And so that's why I was so curious about this question with you. What is teaching you the most right now?
Oh my goodness. Well, this is the year of the fire horse, as you know. and we've got a lot of spiritual energy coming in. The energies are immense that are coming in right now. We've had all these solar flares and coronal mass ejections and earthquakes and electromagnetic frequencies, and the Schumann's gone off the scale. So I think we're all learning a lot of things. So I think that the actual environment that we're living in is teaching me stuff, even sort of to reflect on things like what's happening with AI, what's happening with contact, what's happening with people awakening to things. So that's teaching me things. And I just think, as well as we go through these different life phases, we learn. So becoming a grandmother is another phase. Working with my daughter, and the forthcoming book of the Bone Circle is teaching me, okay, we can still rise and can still have a career in, beyond retirement age. And that's teaching me stuff. I think there's many things anything that triggers me teaches me as well. Anything that's triggering me is showing me something in my shadow that I need to look at. And I feel that our whole lives are constantly transforming. In fact, transformation is my why. It's my motivation is positive transformation. And we're on this constant journey of transformation. The work is never done. And as we go through those different phases of our lives, different things come in to teach us. I've just spent 2.5 months with my daughter, and that's taught me things, because what I love is that saying that the teacher is always the student and the student is always the teacher. And we can learn. Just because she's my daughter and she's younger than me doesn't mean that I can't learn things from her or learn about myself as seeing things that are reflected in her. So it's a very interesting time to be alive. I think there's a lot of change going on for everybody.
Yes. Yes, I love that. I think very often in a lot of personal development and spiritual growth, teachings, sometimes I have seen and observed that there is kind of some endpoint, right? That if you do this or you follow this formula, then you'll be enlightened, or then it'll all be resolved, and I think that's, for me, we're constantly kind of like growing and learning, and that's called as the University of Life. And so I love that you're continuously staying the student, and that also invites us to just stay open and curious about everything. And I loved what you said about triggers really being our teachers. It truly is. And so I think that it can invite transformation and growth if we meet it from love, I would say, and curiosity.
Yeah, not always easy to do, but absolutely.
Not easy to do, but this is why you have community and soul sisters to speak
Exactly,
about.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
that beginner's mind, isn't it? Having the beginner's mind, and also understanding that you may have worked on something and you think you've put it to bed, but there might be another layer of the onion skin that's coming up. In fact, there's normally more than one layer. Oh, that chestnut's come up again. Let's have a look at it. So yeah, a lot, and I love what you're saying about, this is we think about Schoolhouse Earth, and this is the University of Life, where we came here, we signed up to come here, believe it or not. We signed up to come here to grow, for our souls to grow. And the way we grow best, unfortunately, is through challenge. So we're going to meet challenges. And as we meet challenges, we grow more resilient and more resourceful, more loving, more compassionate, more forgiving. These are all the qualities we need as our soul moves on.
And this leads me to my next question. What is one of your core values and how do you embody it?
One of my core values is authenticity. I find it very difficult in this plastic world we're in, where there's a lot of fake news, a lot of fake Instagram stuff, AI, a lot of people having plastic surgery or taking Ozempic and all of these things. It's inauthentic. So authenticity is really important to me. It's not always easy to be authentic, and I'm not claiming that I'm 100% authentic, but I try to be and I strive to be. It's one of my core values, and I'm most attracted to people who are their authentic selves and living their authentic selves, expressing themselves authentically. And I actually think it's something that humanity maybe is not aware of, but is there, because when you see, for example, a brilliant actress or a fantastic pianist or a great singer or a wonderful artist, they are being authentic and expressing their authentic self. And it has a very electrical, magnetic and magical quality about that. They're living sovereign, they're living their greatness, and that is their authentic selves. So that's a huge core value for me, which I try to live by. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I try.
And I think as we're moving more and more into a world where discernment of what is real and what's not real is going to become it's going to become even more and more important to be able to discern what is true for you and what is not. But especially what I'm finding as well is that people are really seeking authenticity. They really want raw, real connection, rather than anything that is inauthentic, let's say, or has a different agenda around it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's because when somebody's being authentic with you, it's more nourishing. There's an energy field to it, and it's a deeper connection.
Yeah.
We somehow sense it, even if we don't know it.
Yes, I think instinctually we can really sense it.
Yeah.
And I think the what we need to be maybe mindful of at the moment is to continue to refine that skill set that we have for discernment. And I think that we don't need to hit the snooze button on, but to practice it,
Yeah, I agree. Discernment is massive right now as we go into this period of time. It's so important in terms of AI, in terms of information that's coming out, and in terms of contact, because we're talking. There's been a lot in the news about contact with other races in space, and we need to discern them as well. Discernment is key to how we interact in the world and what we take in, because what we take in shapes us as well.
Yeah. This kind of leads me into as we're talking about authenticity, it leads me into the next part, what I want to explore with you, which is the journey. And so I'm curious to know, we're talking about authenticity now, but when did you stop performing and start belonging to yourself?
Oh, I wonder whether we ever do that completely, but I think it's becoming aware, and it's a slow process. And again, it goes back into that constantly learning with the open mind and the beginner's mind and embracing, what's triggering me. And I think it's difficult to pinpoint a moment in time when I said I'm not going to perform anymore, I'm going to be true to myself, because it's a very frightening thing to do, because we're conditioned to perform, we're conditioned to people please, we're conditioned to fit in with the values of our family and our culture and our generation, and we all want to belong, and we all want to be loved, and we all want connection. So we'll hang on to those things, so we'll hang on to the things we should do or ought to do. And I think it's really difficult to break ourselves from that. I think the big turning point for me was training as a therapist. When I was about 40, I trained as retrained from a career in public relations as a therapist and hypnotherapist. And that enabled me to start to look at what's going on in the subconscious, what's going on in the shadow, who am I, why am I doing these things? That was the beginning of the journey. And then working intuitively, which I've been doing for the last 14 years, and which I train people to do in the Bone Circle, that has brought it into sharper focus, let's say. It enabled me to see much more clearly where I'm still, doing what I think I should do, or what I ought to do, or what is expected of me. So I can see that more clearly and nip it in the bud and shift the focus into what would I love? What would I love? Which I think it's interesting. I just want to say something. It's coming up as I'm speaking, that a lot of people think, well, isn't that selfish? Go and do what you love. Aren't you supposed to be serving everybody else? Well, we do serve other people, but we serve them best by doing what we love. So you love doing your work, Eleftheria, Root to Rise, and working with women and circles, and you're brilliant at it because you have the skill set to do that and you have the passion to do that. And if you did not follow what you loved, we would be missing out on the jewel that you bring. So it's very important actually to love ourselves and do what we love. Then we can be the authentic self that is the part that fits into the tapestry of life, and that has a ripple effect out and serves others. If you're doing something you don't really want to do, you get resentful. You start to
Yes.
have a grudge, and that's not a good energy. We've got to raise the vibration on the planet. The highest vibration is love. I love that you were saying about the 8 words in Greek, a different love. We've got to get to that agape love. And so we do that by following love and joy and laughter and the things we love and being true to our authentic self. The authentic self is your greatness, is your greater self. It's not the small ego self. And when you're true to your authentic self, you fulfill what you came here to do.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I think also what's been very helpful for me is learning how to feel that in my body. I can feel when I'm being authentic. It's something that really lights me up and I don't get exhausted by it. It inspires deep joy. It's so natural for me. I don't even know that I'm doing it. And so that's for me authentic natural gifts and talents. And when I'm people pleasing or performing or it feels very different in my body. And you'll even find that our voices change. When we say yes to something that we actually mean no to, yes, I'll bake those cookies, like your voice goes up, you can really feel it in your body. And so for me, it's also being present enough to feel it, and that's helpful for me to stay kind of like awake and to choose it. I've tried in my life to not do what I feel my purpose is here, and it did not work out well. I've tried, and that was a journey and a half that just leads you back onto your path.
Totally. And ultimately, you're led back onto your path anyway. So just go for it in the first
Yeah.
place.
Yes, yes. And still great learnings from those, getting lost in the
Yeah.
forest a little bit. Yeah. So this kind of also brings me into your journey from London. And you left London and followed your intuition to South Africa before you knew what waited for you. And so looking back, what did that leap teach you about trust?
Oh my goodness. Looking back, I kind of want to go like that. But, when you say it that way, it does sound completely crazy. And I think at the time it felt completely crazy. But I've always been courageous in that regard, is to rise to the challenge. And I've also been somebody who's, whatever it is I've learned in life, whether that was in the days of being a therapist or a healer or anything else, I like to test it out to see, does that work? Because again, it goes back to discernment, actually. I've learned this thing, does it actually work? Is this a valuable tool in my box? And is it valuable for other people? How can I share that with others? So I had been doing on this whole sort of 9-month training course to purposefully tap into intuition. And I needed to check it. I needed to say, okay, does this work? And the only way I could do that was to take the journey. So I had been intuitively guided to leave my job as a Harley Street therapist in London, at the top of my game with a waiting list and successful, to leave my beautiful flat in London and leave my children at university. They were going to university and drama school, and pack everything up, rent my flat out, pack everything into a suitcase and come to South Africa. And it seemed suicidal. It seemed absolutely suicidal because, I'd spent 10 years or something building that career, longer, to get to the top of my place and do my 10,000 hours and be good at it. And hey, I'm finally successful. And to give that up seemed crazy. I had a beautiful old Victorian flat with big high ceilings, and it was in a beautiful place. And to give that up seemed crazy. To share to rent my space out to people I didn't even know seemed crazy. To get rid of half of what I owned because I had to empty the flat out and I couldn't store it all or take it all seemed crazy. And towards the end, I remember kind of shaking with fear of that I was going to ruin my life. I was throwing my life away. Not only was I doing that, but I was leaving London, which I'd lived in for years, about 30 odd years. And all of my friends in London, all of my support structures in London. I was leaving my family behind, not just my children, but my brothers and my parents. And the other thing is, I had never been to South Africa in my life. So it wasn't as if I'd come on holiday to Cape Town and loved it and thought, I'm going to go and see if it's okay, am I going to live there? No, I had never actually visited, I'd never set foot on South African soil. So I remember clearly, once the children, they're adults now, had gone to university and drama school, and I had 3 weeks left, and I'd booked my ticket, and I had to now. I'd burned my bridges. I had to go. And the only thing I had in my back pocket was that the visa meant that I could only stay for 90 days. So I decided to go back for Christmas. I arrived here in October 2012, decided to go back for Christmas. And I thought, if I hate it, my flat's rented out for a year, I've got some income, I'll travel or I'll do something, or I'll go and live somewhere else and a smaller place. And, there's options because I'll have money. And actually by then I knew I loved South Africa and I was going to come back. But I remember packing, trying to desperately, give things away and sell things and dump things and stuffing bin liners with clothes I wasn't going to need anymore. And I was so nervous. And there was this program, I used to listen to BBC Radio 4, which is quite an intellectual radio program. There's a lot of talk shows, but there's also a lot of funny things on there. And I think it was Woman's Hour. And the woman, which is all, targeted at women, and she was interviewing someone who had Tourette's, who had just written a book. But while she was interviewing her, all her tics and quirks were coming out. But this woman had trained herself, instead of saying a swear word, to say biscuits. So the woman was going, everything she asked her, like, oh, can you tell us about your book? She'd go, biscuits, biscuits, and then carry on. And it made me laugh. And I just remember this belly laughter and just thought, I'll be okay. I have to do this. So intrepid indeed. But when I arrived, there was a lot of magic unfolded. I think I met you, Eleftheria, within about the first
Yes,
2 weeks or 3 weeks of
yes,
being here. So
yes.
a lot of magic unfolded, and I have an amazing life now, for which I'm incredibly grateful.
Mm, mm. Yes, I think we could do a whole series just on the way that we met. Um,
Yes, indeed.
but staying with Root to Rise conversation. So, I mean, it takes a lot of courage. And I think very often, if we're intuitively called to something, it's kind of our courage that has to catch up because
Yes.
we know. And so, is there anything that you could share with us about how you moved from fear into trust? Because it really takes a lot of trust, especially, with such a huge courageous step.
I think when we are being guided like that for some major life move, we have to trust that the divine has our back. That there, especially if you're on any kind of spiritual path, the divine has your back. It is not going to take you down some deep, horrible, dark path. And even if you did, it's a learning. As you said, you went on a few little detours through the forest before embracing your mission and purpose. And so even if that did, so what? You learn. So that gives me trust that the divine has my back. There is a plan, especially when it's coming intuitively. And I think I worked with a lot of people intuitively because we worked in community with that, in circle. And so different people were getting the same message. And whenever I tapped into that, I kept getting the same thing. And there were certain things that helped me to know that it was true. For example, I get sort of like goosebumps and my hair's gone end if there's a truth. And I remember once going to Kew Gardens this is in the lead up to coming to Cape Town. I got an intuitive hit to go to Kew Gardens in London. Now, it was a freezing cold day, and I am not good with the cold. I had this big coat and a hat and a scarf and gloves, and I arrived at Kew Gardens. I was shivering. And I thought, oh, why have I got to come here in the middle of the winter? I was annoyed, and I thought I'll just head for this huge greenhouse. There's a huge old Victorian greenhouse in Kew Gardens. So I walked in, and there was an arrow that said South Africa to the left. And I thought, oh, I'll just go and see, because I've got this whole thing, I've got to go to South Africa. The place was warm, obviously, it was heated. So I instantly was warmer. And as I walked through the vegetation of South Africa, I was getting shivers all over. My hairs were standing on end. And in fact, I had to sit on a little wall and cry. And I thought, this is not like me, what's going on? And it was like a little tap on the shoulder to go, hey, it's right. And a little symbol, a little sign. And we get those, but we have to watch for them. There were all sorts of magical things, like a friend of mine from England who was himself South African, suddenly decided that he was going to go back to South Africa, to Cape Town, to see his parents 3 weeks before I arrived. And he said, I'll meet you from the airport. So it's just a little piece of magic that said, yeah, no, you're going on the right path. Then there was another friend of mine who said, I've got a friend who's English, who's married to a South African and lives in Cape Town. She's in England on holiday. I'll put you in touch with her. This was a month before I left. And when I arrived, I always say that she was my angel in Cape Town, because she lent me a blanket and a map book and did normal things like invited me to her house to have supper. And she was English, so it felt familiar. So there was all these little signs that you're on the right path. It's not just one intuitive thing, then go for it. So I think as you build trust because you start to realize this is true, even though I'm scared and I'm in great fear, I know it to be true because it rings true. It has a resonance to it. And then when that has that resonance, you have to ignore all the chatter in the mind, all the thoughts and feelings that you're completely ruining your life and throwing your career away. You have to say to yourself, no, because there's been signs along the way that this is the path I need to take, and I have to listen to intuition, because the only real true thing is intuition. Everything else is illusion. We hear from Eastern philosophies, everything is an illusion, but intuition is your truth coming to you. That's your authentic voice.
Beautiful. Thank you. Those synchronistic moments for me is the affirmations.
That's right.
If the synchronistic moments kind of like don't happen, that's when I start questioning, is this intuition or is this part of my identity that is leading me? But I look for the synchronous moments. And as you say, it is about being aware of it and seeing it. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
So on the same theme, I think my next question is, how do we know when life is inviting us into that next chapter rather than simply asking us to endure the current one?
I think that goes back to what you were saying about listening to the body and feeling what's going on in the body. Because excitement and fear are really, really similar. If you think about it, if you're anxious about something, are you excited about it or are you afraid of it? So it's going into the body and thinking, am I excited about this next phase? Or am I just totally enduring it? Now, going back into me leaving London to come here, although I was afraid, there was that little seed of excitement. It was exciting to think that I was going to leave this life that had actually worn me down and burned me out, which I had enough of anyway. It was exciting to think that I might be going and traveling like some intrepid adventurer to deepest, darkest Africa. It was exciting to me that I was able at that point in my life to go and do something completely different. So there was a feeling of excitement as well as intrepidation. So if I went into the heart and I went into my body, I could feel that it was open. That there wasn't a clenching, or it was very open. So whereas I think if you're being called to endure something, the whole body tightens. The jaw tightens, you grit your teeth, I've got to get on with this. The fists tighten, the body tightens, the heart chakra closes. I think that's actually our best signal. And the other one I think is, would I love it? Would I love to go and live on a beach in South Africa in the sun? Yeah. While London's going into the winter? Yes, I would. I think I would, whereas if it was like, you're going to go and endure something you don't love. Yeah, would I love? I can't think of anything. I hate this whole thing about cold water stuff. It's not me.
Yeah.
I just can't do it. I don't want to do it. And people go, oh, it's lovely. I don't care. I don't want to do it. If somebody said to me, no, come on, endure it. You're going to do an ice bath every morning. I would be pushing myself through it. If someone said, actually, saunas are really good for you. We're going to get you to go on the beach and have a sauna every day, and then you're going to run into the sea. I might go, oh, yeah, okay, that sounds exciting. So I think we need to go back into the heart and say, is this something I would love? Or is it something I'm going to endure? And how does that feel in my body?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And again, linking back to authenticity and resonance, right? I mean, if cold plunging isn't for you, it's not for you. And that's okay.
That's okay. We don't have to justify it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you often speak about purpose, and has your understanding of purpose changed over the years?
Yes, it has. When I first started to go into think about purpose, I thought it was a big, massive goal to work towards. It was this big thing that I have to understand, a big thing I have to discover and unwrap. I've got a purpose, and it's going to be difficult, it's going to be challenging, and I won't be able to do it. And yeah, that I think, and it seemed to be a big scary thing in the future. Now I don't feel that. Now I feel our purpose has always been with us. We just didn't see it. So in my forthcoming book, The Bone Circle, I talk a little bit about this, and I talk about a tree. And there's a purpose for that tree. Let's say an apple tree. That the purpose of that apple tree is manifold. Is to actually fruit and create apples, but it also creates shade, and it might create shelter for birds, and it might create, it's holding the earth in place. And there's myriad things. When that tree eventually dies, the wood will be used for something. So it has a purpose in the world, and it's perfectly suited to that purpose in the world. It knows how to grow apples, and it's just naturally being itself, and that's its purpose. And so I think now that our purpose is much more linked to who we are and what we do and what we love. Actually, it's what we love doing, what we're good at. I love speaking, I love teaching, and I love writing, but particularly more teaching and speaking, I think, so and sharing wisdom. So that's what I'm going to do, and I feel that is my purpose. I know that my purpose, because there's techniques that I use within the bone circle, that my purpose is to be, it's actually the living covenant of light here to reveal knowledge. So it's all about revealing knowledge, but I only found that out about 5 years ago. But up until then, I've been revealing knowledge all the way. And so sometimes it's looking at what do I love and what am I really good at? What are my gifts and talents and what enthuses me? What inspires me? That is likely your purpose. And I think as well, people think that their purpose is going to be some big, massive, life-changing, world-changing thing. It might not be. Your purpose might be to be a good mother. Your purpose might be to be the person in your family that stops a dysfunction going down. Your purpose might be to find stillness in an ordinary life. It could be something very ordinary. It could be something very small. It could be something massive and life-changing and cosmic. Who knows? Because each of us are individual, although we have that common humanity. And so we each have a facet to do. We're a part of the jigsaw. And we might be a bit of the sky, or we might be that bright hibiscus flower, but it doesn't make anybody any less. We all need to be part of that jigsaw for the whole thing to work. So our purpose is really who we are and what we love.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, I think I love what you said is like, I think it's that jigsaw. And so for me, it's also when we really, I think it's receiving your purpose. It's also part of that journey. And when we receive it and we just embody it naturally, I think it's part of an entire ecosystem. And in that ecosystem, every part is super valuable. And for me on my own journey, especially when I was much younger, purpose used to scare me so much because I used to think I've got to save the world. And I was still in my rescuer phase there before I did some real deep therapy on healing the inner rescuer and some inner child work. But what liberated me was really letting go of this need to have extraordinary purpose, extraordinary in itself, because I learned that this need to be extraordinary is really scarcity. It's actually scarcity consciousness, which I hadn't kind of like put together. And when I realized that, I thought, wow, okay, so ordinary purpose is still really magical and really beautiful and still deeply fulfilling for me. And it's part of the collective, the entire ecosystem. If I do my ordinary magic, it inspires others to do their ordinary magic. And that's actually prosperity consciousness, because now we're working together in this entire beautiful, magnificent ecosystem.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. That's absolutely how it is. And it's okay for you to have the purpose that you have. And as you said, when you embrace that, you embody it, it's easier. I love this quote, I think it was by Oscar Wilde, that said, "Be yourself because everyone else is taken." And I love that, because so many people want to be somebody else, don't they? They want to be that famous person over there, or I want to be you. I remember somebody saying, "I just want to be you," and I was thinking, well, you can't be me. You've got to be you. So yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. I think the driver behind that is the not enough.
Yeah, belief. I found that interesting when you said that, the scarcity. I need to take it all the line.
Yeah. Because I'm not enough. And so I can't even be me because I am not enough.
Yeah. And just being whatever it is, just being a mother is not enough.
Yeah. So your guiding message, which I love is the way. And so in a world that is often celebrating achievement over presence, what does that really mean in everyday life? Love is the way.
So love is the way is actually the first bone of the bone circle. It's the foundation bone or stone that we build everything on. And so love must be the core of your life. It has to be the thing. What you love is the thing that you are enthusiastic about, that motivates you to get out of bed and do something, is doing what you love. Being loving and kind to yourself and others and the world and the environment is also the way that we build that ecosystem that you were talking about. Our crowning glory is love. When we create from the heart, we create something made of love. That love ripples out and touches others, as you were saying. So love is many layered, and I loved what you said about the 8 different words in Greek words for love, because that's absolutely true. There's all these different types of love. You know, I love chocolate, but that's not the same as how much I love my husband. So, you know, there's different levels and types of love, and then we have the divine love. But love is, for me, the ground state of our being. Love is not a feeling or an emotion. It's rather the lack of all the negative ones. It's the lack of fear and anger and depression and sadness, and what you're left with is love. Love and light, what emanate out from, you know, the higher heavens for all of creation, not just for us. So we're built on love. We are love. We're beings of love. We have a field of love around the heart. That love is really the core, the foundation stone, and also the capstone of everything we are and do. So love is always the way. Love is the way to heal yourself. Love is the way for relationships. Love is the way to create what you love. Love is the way that we're going to raise our vibration. Love is the way to ascend into 5 dimension. You know, love is the way that takes us back into divinity. So it's always that love is the way. So always choose what you love. And that this is why it's important. Interesting that you compared that to people wanting success. Really, that's what my novel Red Dress is about. It's talking about a woman who's found success. She's gone there, she's done the flipping, you know, road of trials, and she's got everything that society would say is successful. She's got the tall, dark, handsome husband. She's got the 2 children. She's got the job. She's got the money. She's got the big house and the big car and the expensive holidays. She's got everything that anybody would want, but she's not fulfilled and she's not happy. And that sets her on a journey of awakening, a spiritual awakening. And there's a lot of fun and laughter in the Jen. It's not a big serious book, but that is the difference, is that what would be markers of success are often not fulfilling. And I think a lot of success markers, such as power and money, actually separate us. Whereas when you follow love, it connects us. Love is a great connector. So it starts to connect us. And we are beings that should be living in community and helping one another and supporting one another. And as you said, with that jigsaw, each playing our part in the whole. There's things that I can't do. I couldn't have this interview without you interviewing me and asking the questions. It would be pointless us doing it unless anybody was going to come and listen. So, you know, we're never an island. We're never isolated. We are all connected. And love deepens that connection. So love is always the way, as far as I'm concerned.
Beautiful. And so if we connect love in leadership, just as a practical term, you know, and so I would pose my next question in terms of like feminine leadership, but I have a little preface to just say, when I talk about feminine leadership, the feminine part that I'm talking about is the feminine principle, which is cyclical thinking, intuition, creativity, interconnectedness. So the feminine principle. And so my question would be, how do you see love through the lens of feminine leadership? How does it practically play out using love as the way in leadership?
To me, it's an obvious way to go into leadership. And I like the fact that you pointed out this is not about women. It's about the divine feminine principle. They actually have to be in balance, like the yin and the yang. We need the masculine and the feminine. But for too long in this world, people have led by the masculine. And the masculine is let's just do it. I don't care about you. You haven't done this job right. And it's that boss archetype that we think about. And it's causes all kinds of problems actually in the world. If you don't like your job, or you don't like your boss, or you don't like your colleagues, or you don't trust your team, if you're at work, we're looking into a work scenario, you're not going to get, nobody's going to get the best out of you. You're not going to enjoy your job, you're going to move on, you're going to be depressed, you're not going to take days off, you know, when you're going to leave early. It just feeds into a downward spiral. And it's the same if we look at leadership in terms of political leadership. Same thing. I'm the boss, you voted me in, I'm doing this, it's my way or the highway. This is what we're going to do, I don't care about what's happening to you, I don't care about that minority. When you start to look at the feminine form of leadership, it's inclusive, because the feminine is intuitive. It's not just going by, these are all the facts and figures and we're going to go this way because that's what the analysis says. And actually some of the great male leaders in the world have got absolute spot on intuition. They call it gut instinct. Well, my gut tells me I'm not going to go with that deal. Because intuition is always your true north. It's your compass that tells you exactly what direction to go in. And you have to be in your feminine to listen to that and not let it be overridden by the logic and the figures and all of that sort of thing. So we've got to go coming out of that patriarchy now as we dismantle it and go into a new way of being. We're moving from the masculine, solely masculine, without the feminine balance, into coming into the feminine and masculine balance, because we still have to do, we still have to take action, we still have to, you know, create. There's a lot of things that have to actually be done at an administrative side. To take action in the world and to be seen in the world, to be visible and all of those sorts of things. But they have to be tempered with the divine feminine, which listens to intuition, which cares about the team, which wants to make sure the team is in place, that each person is working to their best ability, that the team trust each other, that they can work together, that any grievances are resolved. All of these things that seem quite obvious actually when you look at it is love is the way. It's make sure that the people that are working for you, if you're a leader, are inspired by you. You know, that I love that thing, you know, with the wolves, that the lead wolf is always at the back of the pack, bringing up the rear to make sure everybody's okay. And we need to go more into that. So it's not like I'm the big head honcho leading this. It's no, lead with love, lead with passion, lead with compassion, lead with connection, lead with being aware of the dynamics in the group and the people who are following you, and be humble. If you've made a mistake, say, I'm really sorry, I've made a mistake. You know, it's to be vulnerable as well. It is also the softness and the receiving of intuition, receiving of feedback without, you know, getting crazy and getting taking umbrage. Is all of these things are leading with love, and all of these things, in my opinion, is the divine feminine lead. I don't know if you agree with that, Eleftheria, because this is your field more than I.
Yeah, yes, no, absolutely, I do. I think that truly is the embodiment of love, and then leading from that love, because I think we all have masculine and feminine principles within, and I think it starts from within the interpersonal world. And so the way that I see it is, you know, if the feminine aspect is intuition, our internal masculine has to trust that intuition without needing it on a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And so it's that internal relationship that needs to move into love, and then we can move from that part forward. And I really do think that's the invitation and the call for us now in the world to step into that. But it starts within. Once we can practice it within, that's when we can start using that in interrelationships as well, to trust the intuition. So if the boss, for example, has an intuitive call and he can't explain to the team why we're pivoting or going into a different direction, you need to, well, for me, this is also part of creating, if you create psychological safety and that trust has been built, people go, okay, let's go.
Let's give it a go.
We don't need a reason. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for the often men in those positions will say, I just got a woman will say, I don't know why, but I'm just getting that I need to do this. It's just an intuitive thing. A man will often say, I've got a hunch. He won't say, I'm having an intuitive hit. He'll just go, I've got a hunch, we need to do this. And you're right that those who are supporting him or her need to have that faith and trust that's already built, and you only build that by experience and by seeing results of things that have happened in the past, by evidence, if you like, that this person is trustworthy. I can trust them, even if they're having a crazy hunch, a crazy intuitive hit. And to understand as well that sometimes, even if somebody's having a crazy hunch or an intuitive hit, even if it goes wrong, it's okay. We all learn. The whole team can learn. Everybody can learn from these things. And everything, pretty much everything, is fixable and undoable. And if you created something, you can uncreate and create something different. So it's fear that holds us back, really. It's fear that stops us trusting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Fear that we're going to make a horrible mistake. It's all got to go horribly wrong. But if you look at some of the leaders in the world, especially the inspiring ones, they've often all made horribly wrong mistakes and learned from them and risen from them. Yeah, those who go through life doing everything the right way and not making any mistake ever don't really have that same growth.
Yeah. Yes. I think one of the biggest pools of wisdom I try and practice is the willingness to be wrong.
Yeah.
It has humbled me, but it has taught me the most, and it's led me to love, fulfillment, and inner peace. Just the willingness to be wrong.
It's a biggie, isn't it? Because we all want to be right. We don't want to get, because I think we've used to maybe in childhood, if you did something wrong, your parents would tell you off, or your teacher would tell you off, or your peers would, exclude you or laugh at you or something. So it's a big wound. I think it's probably a collective wound, the need to be right, the need to get it right. And actually letting go of that is really powerful. Not easy, but powerful. That willingness to be wrong.
I think especially for women like us who maybe didn't feel like they fit in. And so, when you have that experience and you're a little bit different, not, special like everybody else is special, right? I'm special like everybody else is special. But you didn't quite fit in. And so I think you then maybe a survival strategy then is to justify. Right, to justify why you're doing something or what choices you're making, or that proving the worth or proving part of self. That kind of leads me into the next question. Where do you think women still give away their power?
I think as women, we have different patterns which do feed right back into that wounding in childhood. And that's where you're going to give your power away. So I think we still give our power away to the authoritative masculine. If there's a figure of authority that is male, we'll often just slip into that doing obeisance to the masculine. Rather than standing our ground. And I think I really like what you were saying about justifying. I think we justify because we don't feel that we are allowed to be, we haven't given ourselves permission to be who we are. And so we have to justify it. And I think particularly when it comes to something soft and vulnerable, for example, women who show their emotions openly can often justify that or try to hide that or try to appease it and slip out of that. But that's going away from authenticity. It's going away from authenticity. It's our emotions that make us human. They're not there to be buried and suppressed and buttoned up, particularly for the feminine. So I think that's a place where we can be led astray. We think, I shouldn't do this.
Oh, the shoulds list.
Yeah, the shoulds and shouldn't.
Should list. Yeah. They're really becoming aware and awakened of that list that, that we constantly telling ourselves, and freeing ourselves from that, giving ourselves choice is really, really powerful, empowering practice for us to step into. Yeah. And you just mentioned patterns, and I'm curious to know what patterns do you see women repeating while they're trying to heal?
again, would be depending on the woman. A lot of women repeat relationship patterns over and over and over and over. Then they play the victim. I always end up with the wrong man. I always end up with the bastard. Actually, you're creating these things through subconscious patterns that you're unaware of. So that's one pattern that I see quite prevalently in women, is just choosing the wrong men, winding up in the wrong relationships and wondering why, and feeling powerless about that, feeling like they're the victim. Oh, it doesn't matter what I do, I always get the wrong person. And I think the other one is career and leadership, actually, is because we're swimming against the tide and still dismantling the old way, the old sort of patriarchal masculine authority way. So we're still having to bump up against that. And so I think that's another pattern where women can feel that they're the imposter, or that they're a failure, that they're not good enough, feel guilty. Those are the sorts of patterns that I see the most playing out in women.
Yes.
I'm sure there's loads of others, and there's probably women listening going, well, I don't agree with Bridget. I've got a completely different pattern, and that's fine. We all do have different patterns, but I think those are quite prevalent within women.
Absolutely. I see the same. And there's some very interesting research around imposter syndrome, that I think it's about 85% of CEOs experience imposter syndrome. And when the CEO or any like C-suite management level of leadership, if it's a woman, it's like 95%. And it's something we don't talk about. And so that's always a conversation I invite women into in our circles, is let's talk about imposter syndrome, because you're so lonely in it. You think you're the only person that thinks, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. Like,
and you have to keep it secret, don't you? You can't possibly tell anybody that you don't know what you're doing, and you're a complete imposter. You haven't got all the credentials that you should have.
Exactly. And again, they're the justifying start. So that kind of critical inner voice, again, I think if we just speak truth to power, and we say, and we can laugh about it and go, oh gosh, there I was in this meeting thinking, what am I doing here? And my little 5-year-old came out going, if we can talk about that and support each other and laugh about it, I think that's supportive, and it heals a lot of it, and we normalize it. It's no longer this isolating experience that we have, because I think that's part of the program of imposter syndrome, right? Isolate.
Absolutely, because you've got to keep that barrier up so people don't know. And I think this is the value of women's circles, where women can support each other in this. I just wanted to go a little bit on one side, but it was interesting, and it came up while you were talking, that I saw recently a video thing. I don't know whether it was on YouTube or whatever it was, but it was the sorts of questions that women in the media get asked, whether they are leaders or politicians, or whether they're television personalities or sports people, or whatever. They get asked questions that men would never get asked. So they took a bunch of men and they asked men the sorts of questions that they would ask women, and the men were just like nonplussed. So I find it very interesting that there's still that bias in the world, and we dutifully try to ask these questions, and the men just kind of frown and go, what? And we kind of got to learn to do that as well. Because I think the way that the media interviews women is sometimes, I remember J.K. Rowling saying something about she'd met somebody in the street and all that they could remark on is that she'd lost weight. She'd be like, I've published 6 books since then, and all these things I've done and achieved, and you're asking about my weight. There's a lot of stuff when they're interviewing celebrities about how they look or how they feel about something, and you'd never ask a man that.
No, exactly. I think one of the comments I get quite a lot from women in leadership roles that I work with is, if they are assertive, they are perceived as being bitchy and unapproachable. And if their male colleague is assertive, it's kind of just accepted. And so I think for all of us, there's a lot of unlearning to still do around this, from all aspects, and then also to look at our own unconscious bias.
Yeah, because we've all got it, because it's programmed into us. But you're absolutely correct. You know,
Yeah,
interesting. Hey?
yeah. So I think we have some healing to do in this dance between the masculine and the feminine.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're called into. Yeah. Yes. So speaking about circle and community, one thing we both deeply value is gathering people in meaningful circle. And why do you think circles have remained sacred across cultures for thousands of years?
I love circles, which is why I have the bone circle. And we can think about circles like stone circles, like Adam's calendar in South Africa or Stonehenge in England. And I think ancient circles were sacred places, points of intersection, points on ley lines, points that connected to star fields, points where you could connect to something bigger than you. So that's one thing. A circle also delineates space. You know, you can put a circle, and think about a Caucasian chalk circle, you can put a circle around it, something, and it's say, we put this as a container. Circles, obviously, they're completely curved as well. There's no edges in the geometry. All of the Platonic solids will fit in a circle or in a sphere. You know, the planet is spherical. Everything spirals. The planet goes round and goes around the sun, and the sun is spiraling. And so everything is in these circles. Circles can go full circle. They can go up into a spiral. So there's a lot about circles which are sacred ancient symbols. We can also think of the circle as being the container, can be the womb. So I think this is why women's circles work, but also men's circles work. If you think about group therapy circles, there's a film that talking to somebody about called The Work, which is about a men's circle in a prison. It's a really powerful film. But so circles are powerful. The other thing about circles is nobody is the leader. Nobody's sitting at the top. So it's like the knights of the round table in Arthurian legend. They all took their place at the table. None of them were more important than the other. If we think about ancient cultures and African tribal cultures, they sit in circle. If there's a problem, they sit in circle. Everybody in that circle has equal validity. Everybody can speak within that circle and be heard. It's a place where you can be held. So I think that's what makes circles endure, and why we still work with them, and why they are still very powerful spaces, because we can say this circle is a powerful space. It's a sacred space. This is a space where you can say what you need to say without being judged, for example. This is a space where these rules apply. We can apply rules to it. You don't talk for longer than a minute, or you're going to hold the pen or whatever it is and pass it to the next person. Or, you know, there's certain rules that we can delineate into that circle, which enable you to hold safe space for people within the circle to discover whatever they want to discover within it. And ultimately, we are community. Ultimately, we can't do anything alone. Everything we do is connected to something else. Everything we create is probably created from something that went before that. And so we're never alone, and we can't do anything alone. So in circle, we can support each other, and we can bring out the best of each other, and we can hear grievances, and we're strong, and we can support, and we're holding space. So I think there's myriad levels. We could probably talk about it for a long time, but I think we've got the nub of it there.
Yeah. And I'm curious to know what you've observed in the bone circle, and also, you know, from the root to rise circles. I see this all the time, but the one thing for me that is the incredible medicine, and this would be my question, is what changes when women witness each other instead of trying to fix each other? So what becomes possible when women witness each other rather than comparing themselves?
Well, as we know, comparison is a poison, isn't it? When you start to compare yourself to other women, you feel isolated and you start to feel inferior. You've got the imposter syndrome. You're not good enough. You're not pretty enough, whatever it is. And it's a very insidious energy that eats away at you when you're judging and comparing and competing. And actually, that's not a divine feminine quality. Competition is much more of a masculine thing. Because, you know, if we look at the animal kingdom, the male competes with another male for the rights to the woman. So women are taking on a masculine trait. When women soften and go into the circle, they are able to witness others. And one of the things, you said it earlier, people think they're the only person who's got imposter syndrome. If they sit in a circle and 90% of that circle also have imposter syndrome, there's a relief, isn't there? There's an immediate, oh, it's not just me. And when you witness that it's not just you, and women have similar problems, similar challenges in life, you're able to soften and open the heart. And again, you can be loving and compassionate and supportive. When you're loving and compassionate and supportive, it's that high tide that raises all ships, because you are creating a much higher vibration. You feel safe, you feel heard, you feel a greater connection with those other women in that circle, when you're not comparing yourself, but you're witnessing that they have similar things going on in their lives to you. It can be very, very powerful, which we know even in therapy, when we think about, say, the 12-step programs, they're all circles and it's all supportive. It's really helpful to share your story with others, because with somebody else who's going through something similar.
Yes.
And that's very strengthening and uplifting.
Yeah. Yes. I think what's pure magic for me that I see, you know, emerge out of circles who really held, I would say, by a good facilitator, they can hold psychological safety, where women are invited into just witnessing each other, and the experience of being seen, heard, and acknowledged is deeply healing on so many levels. And I think that opens up the space for collective intelligence and collective wisdom. And what's amazing for me to see as you work with a circle like that is when women feel seen, heard, and valued, the wisdom that collectively emerges is just profound. And you look at that collective wisdom and you think, wow, like, you know, really together, we are so much more resilient, powerful. We can solve so many things together, rather
Absolutely.
than just me trying to figure out, you know, this problem that I have, or feeling alone in that.
So it's another saying that I have for the Bone Circle, as part of the opening ceremony for it, is that together we're strong and together we rise. But we can only be strong and be together and rise together in the vulnerability of being open rather than comparing.
Yes.
And I think it's interesting, because we're talking about very specific held circles, but if the best experiences of women, they don't have to be a formal circle where everybody's sitting around it. It can be, for example, if you look at a group of women who are cooking together, and somebody's chopping the onions, and somebody else is washing up, and somebody else is laying the table, and you're talking and singing, and the music's on, and it's very nourishing, because they're working in circle. And it can be the same in anything that a group of women are doing. If they're weaving a blanket, or, you know, knitting something, or preparing for some ritual or some feast, or whatever it is, when women get together and do things together and honor their differences and their skills and talents within the group, and are open and inclusive, it's that many hands make light work, and it's true, you know, that it doesn't have to be a formal circle. A group of women working together without judging and comparison, we get a lot done quickly.
Yes. I think this is really our lineage in many ways. And I remember a long time ago reading an article around the invention of the washing machine, and how that was directly connected to women's depression, because women used to, walk to the river together, sing together, talk about their experience while they went to go and do their washing. And so it was these ordinary kind of like tasks. Maybe in older cultures, it would be different, maybe more, leadership activities. as well. I just want to include that also. But we used to do a lot of things together until we were taught not to. And in this isolation is this deep yearning and longing for the feminine, to rediscover it, to re-enter a sisterhood, and to do things together. And as you're saying, it doesn't have to be a formal circle. It could just be cooking, creativity. I think it is creativity that then brings out these beautiful aspects of women, and we start to remember who we are.
I absolutely agree. And I think it's the Western world that has lost it. If we look at more tribal cultures, they still have that. The groups of women that go out and do things together and they talk to each other. And it's not just washing machines, but pretty much everything is isolating us now, isn't it? There's the phone, there's the computer, life has become so fast, but also all these sort of convenient things like the washing machine. You can even order your groceries online and they get delivered. So you don't even have to go to the supermarket and talk to the checkout girl, you know. So we're becoming more and more and more isolated. And I think that's why everybody, not just women, is yearning for real connection.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so that brings me to the question, what role does belonging play in healing?
I love that Brené Brown quote that, you know, I belong to everyone and I belong to no one. And I've come to see the wisdom of that quote. We're all individual. Nobody owns us. You know, we don't belong to anyone but ourselves and God, if you like, in a sense. But at the same time, we belong to everyone because everything is one. So I think it's really important to have that sense of belonging, because if we go right back to your first question about my childhood and me feeling like I didn't belong, and was sort of different, not in a good way necessarily, just sticking out and not fitting in, that's a horrible feeling. It's a very closed down feeling. It's a depressing feeling. And it leads into the comparison that we talked about. It leads into jealousy. It leads into feeling not good enough, depression. It really takes the vibration right the way down if you feel that you don't belong. But if you can stand in your own power and love yourself, because love is always the way, you can feel you do belong to yourself and you do belong to the divine. And also, you know, when you can overcome that, this is tying the threads of a lot of what we've talked about. If you can come into circle with other people and understand that other women have got similar things to you, there's less of a feeling of not belonging. I think it's about finding your tribe, actually, because there's, you know, I don't know, 8 billion people on the planet. There's plenty of people out there. There's going to be people like you, but there's going to be people who are not like you. There's going to be people who have completely different core values, completely different cultural references. Their focus is somewhere completely different, and you're not going to resonate. It's just like music, you know. If you have to resonate and be in harmony with people, and when you find your tribe, you resonate with them. You're in harmony with them, and that creates orchestra. That creates symphony. You know, if you play one musical instrument, it's a thin sound. Or if you play a second instrument in harmony, you've already got a beautiful sound. If you listen to something like overtone singing, which I always find remarkable, you hear this one voice, but it's split into all these overtones, and all of a sudden it becomes rich. And I think life becomes rich when you find your tribe. It could be across the world, you know. You and I are different parts of the world right now, but we resonate, so we can create harmony, so we create a richness. So that sense of belonging is really important, but also to not people please so that you feel that you belong, or try to be like somebody else, because just because you want to belong, you have to also feel autonomous and sovereign within yourself.
Mm-hmm. I think you're also describing the difference between fitting in versus belonging.
Yeah.
So,
big difference.
Huge difference. And again, it's really a journey to get there. I remember really trying out all different types of communities and everything, you know me, Bridget, you know my whole journey, from, you know, the vegan community to, you know, the ultra spiritual, to just trying to find my tribe. And in each one, I really discovered that I just don't fit in, you know, even just, you know, multicultural, and I'm, you know, I'm on the edge of so many different things continuously, and have been since I have been a child. And so until the moment where I decided, you know what, fuck it, I'm not going to fit in anywhere. And if I can just accept myself and choose to belong to myself, I can step into any room and know that I belong. And then I find my nourishment from a circle of people who share value system and resonance, and that's where I really find fulfillment. And it almost empowers my own sense of belonging. I'm very concerned about the word tribe. I'll tell you why. I think we need that to really nourish us. But I also think what's very important right now in our world is to spend time in communities with people you don't resonate with, that don't share your own values. Because I think what can happen with tribes is that we love being together so much that it becomes us against the world, and it can become silo thinking, where you then almost, not by any I don't think it is intentional, but it just unfolds in a way where we're only thinking in one direction, and it can lead to right way belief. That's what I'm trying to kind of say.
Yeah, no, I absolutely hear you, is that we have to be able to see somebody else's perspective as well. When you're with tribe, you know their perspective, they're the same as yours or similar.
Yeah.
And so you've got lots of common points, so it's easy to talk and easy to get on and easy to connect. It's not easy to connect with people who are not like you, but the problem with being completely tribal is that you don't embrace other cultures and other people's perspectives and points of view. But I think if you're grounded in who you are and belong to yourself, you are able to go, oh, that's an interesting point of view. You might not agree with it, but you are able to accept somebody else's point of view as theirs and allow them to have that. And sometimes the differences can be interesting. So I hear what you're saying completely. I also think it leads back a little bit as well, that when you do what you love and you fulfill your mission and purpose, that's when you draw your tribe. And they may be from different walks of life.
Yeah.
And they may not always be exactly like you. There will be differences, but there's a common thread that holds you together, which I also like in terms of community. So yeah, community is probably a better word than tribe.
Yeah. Good. Let me see what other questions I have for you. If somebody feels disconnected from purpose, where would you encourage them to begin?
Listen to themselves and reach out, ask, if you really don't know what your purpose is and you feel so disconnected to it, the best thing you can do is start to ask yourself, what would I love? Or what do I love? What do I love in life? What would I love? If there was a magic wand, if I went to bed tonight and there was a miracle, but I was asleep and I didn't know the miracle had happened, what would tomorrow morning look like? If there was a miracle, I knew what my purpose was and I was living the life I really love, and I was having a great time, I was feeling fulfilled and uplifted, what would that look like? And you can even ask your own subconscious that and go to bed and see what happens the next day, because you often will wake up with, I know what I want to do. And also look at what you love in your life. What have you loved go back in your past? What are the best times in your life? What made them the best times? What was it that fired you up? What was it that made you think, oh, I love that? Or I had a great time when I did whatever it was. Or when I did that, I felt really good. I felt fully present. I felt uplifted and joyous. Those are the pointers. And I find prayer a very, very powerful thing as well. And to offer up a prayer, to the divine and say, I come before you today and I feel very lost. I'm a lost sheep. I want to know what my purpose is. Don't really know. Can you give me clarity, truth and guidance on that? I'd really appreciate it. Thank you. Amen. Or however you want to frame your prayer and however you understand the divine in your life. That can be really powerful and insights can come. And just choosing as well. Choosing is extremely powerful. Choice and intention is really powerful. So if you just say, I don't know what my purpose is, I'm disconnected from it, I've got no idea, I'm blanked. You just make the intention. But it's my intention to connect with it and know it and live it. I would choose to find what my purpose is, even though I don't know what it is right now. Even though I don't know what shape or form it's going to be, I choose to be connected to my purpose, and I'm absolutely intending that, and I'm going to see what life unfolds for me, because ultimately the divine has your back. Ultimately, your own greatness, your own intuition will guide you towards that. You just have to watch for the signs.
Thank you. That I could hear at least like 4 or 5 different tools that you've offered us here, in terms of where to start with your purpose. And what I love with the tools that you offered us is you've offered us psychological tools, you've offered us like coaching tools, you've offered us spiritual tools. This is amazing. Thank you. Great.
Yes, thank you.
So, Bridget, rapid fire questions.
Okay,
Are
I'm
you
ready.
You ready? Right. What grounds you?
What grounds me?
Grounds you.
Hardly anything. I have to really work at grounding. So what grounds me is standing barefoot in my garden, walking through forests, those sorts of things. I have special crystals. I've always had them to hand, like grounding crystals like this hematite here. I have to hold them every night before going to bed. But what also grounds me is reality, facing things, not trying to, being in the world, being fully present, being with my children, being with my friends, having dinner together. I love having dinner with friends, eating a meal together, drinking a glass of wine, laughing, dancing, getting into the body. Joy, it's just the joy of living, those little moments of joy. I can't wait to meet my little grandson, and I know that I'm going to have fun with him. I'm going to be one of those grandmas that have a lot of fun, and I hope to be, and I hope he enjoys that. But that's what intention I'm setting, and I think those things ground you as well, don't they? Actually, doing the washing up and cooking and all the normal sort of everyday tasks of life are also extremely grounding, I think.
Who reminds you of who you are?
Oh my goodness, who reminds me of who I am? I don't know the answer to that question. It's very interesting. Who reminds me of who I am? I think I'm me. I just think I'm me, and it goes back to being authentic. If I'm being authentically me, there's not going to be anybody else that really reminds me of me. That I see certain facets of myself in others. I'm stumped for an answer that's unusual for me.
Good.
So I just want to honour you for finding a question I don't know the answer to. I mean, there's negative things. Like I look in the mirror and I think, oh my God, I look like my mum. But that's not the kind of thing that you're asking. Yeah, sometimes I come across somebody who's doing some work in the world which might be similar to what I'm doing, and I think, yeah, that reminds me of me. There are people that I work with, yourself including, actually, that maybe you're going through a different phase of life to me, but it reminds me of how I was. You remind me of how I was when I was going through my more career phase in London. So there are people who remind me of me. But it's normally a facet. It's normally something that they're going through in life that I think, oh yeah, I went through that. I understand that. I get that. Yeah. Actually, do you know what? My first instinct was to say you, but I can't say that in an interview.
Yeah. Morning ritual.
Morning rituals I find very important because they set the energy for the whole day. So I have quite a long extended morning ritual, which I don't like doing anything before 10 o'clock in the morning. I wake up and I do immediately a meditation, which is a music sound meditation, which I do lying down in bed, and it's brilliant because it takes me into theta state, and I'm either very, very relaxed and meditative, or I'm healing things that are coming up, or I get inspiration and ideas. So that's powerful. I like to go out and sit in the sunlight after I've got up immediately because I like to get my circadian rhythms going. So I sit outside, come rain or shine, and I'm very blessed to live somewhere which is beautiful and I can see nature and hear the birds and listen to the ocean even. And so I love to sit outside for at least 20 minutes with my cup of herbal tea with a little bit of salt in it, and I'll go and put my feet on the ground and ground myself. I will do a little prayer for the day, not just for the day, but I will do a prayer, whatever I'm inspired to do. I'll do a few neck stretches and things. I'll go and do a little bit of stretching. I will sit in meditation, proper meditation, not for long, 5-10 minutes. I work with choices in life. We create choices, and I will say my choices. I will think about them. I'll embody them, and I'll just say, I choose to have a beautiful day today, and I choose to love it, and I choose to do what I love, and that's my morning ritual. Then it's kind of get dressed, have breakfast, and all the normal things. But I like to set it up energetically first.
What are you saying no to this year?
I'm actually saying no to things that I feel I should do, particularly around spiritual practice. And, sometimes I think if you get into too much of a ritual with a spiritual practice, it loses its spirituality. So I'm particularly saying no to things that are pulling me away from myself or pulling me away from joy and happiness. So I'm not going to listen to a piece of music just because it's spiritual. I want to listen to a piece of music because I love it and I want to dance to it, or I want to sing along to it. I don't want to do something because I feel I should and push myself into, for example, editing my book by a particular deadline to get that published. I want to flow more with what I would love in the day. So I'm trying desperately to say no to shoulds.
Beautiful. What does home mean?
Home is where the heart is. I've never really felt that this building or this house I live in, or Cape Town or London or anywhere else, is necessarily home. I'll be, one of those people that if I'm staying in a hotel somewhere, or, be in Airbnb or even a caravan somewhere, and we've gone out for a walk, I'll say, should we go home now for a cup of tea? And what I mean is, let's go back to base. It's the base that I'm based at. It's the place where I'm living right now. So home for me is, and by the way, if I was on holiday, I'd be with my husband or with my children or with good friends. I wouldn't go on holiday with somebody you don't like or on your own. So it is community, it is love, it is what's familiar, it is safe space. It's where you are going to prepare your meals and eat them and rest and sleep and nourish and nurture. So it's space which has a vibration and a feeling, and it's not a building or an actual place for me.
What gives you hope?
What gives me hope is that I see change in the world, and I see change in myself, positive change. I see people awakening. I see the work that you're doing, the work that I'm doing, the work that many light workers are doing, starting to gain traction. I see that prophecy is coming to pass. And ultimately, it's this spiritual journey of filling ourselves with the spirit of the divine and moving away from the material and elevating ourselves into greater and greater consciousness levels of compassion and love. And that journey is always open to anybody. That gives me hope. Possibility. All possibilities exist.
Complete the sentence. I know I've rooted deeply when.
I know I've rooted deeply when I totally believe in what I'm doing for myself, and I'm not going, oh, I'm an imposter. I've rooted deeply when I feel solid in myself, when I feel that core of who I am. I'm standing in my own authority and sovereignty. It's not that I'm being bossy or big-headed. It's just that I go, I know I need to do this. I know I'd love to do this. I'm going to do it. And I'm not going to let all the chatter, either from inside my head or from outside of my head from other people, sway me off this path. For me, that's groundedness. You're being grounded in who you authentically are.
I love that. I have one root question and one rise question. And I'd like to, to kind of close every conversation with what I call a root question and a rise question. So, Bridget, when in your life did you stop trying to become someone and begin remembering who you already were?
I think that was at the age of 30 when I had my daughter. So it was becoming a mother makes you really stop and think about who you are, what your values are, how do you want to be as a mother, how do you want to bring this child into the world. There's an immense responsibility being a parent, and that wakes you up into who am I, let's discover this. So I think that was a defining moment for me.
And finally, the rise question. What's one truth you would want any woman that is listening to us right now to remember before she leaves this conversation, to remember about herself?
You're a woman and you're amazing because you produce life. We are the womb of creation. Whether you have a physical baby or whether you are creatrix in the world, whether you're creating a book or a cafe or a meal or an outfit or a home or a circle or an incredible leadership program, you are the womb. You bear life. You hold life. Women give birth to life, they hold life, and they're there at the end. We are birth doulas, we are death doulas, and we hold life in the middle. You are so powerful.
Thank you. And in closing, knowing that the red thread connects all of us, I would invite you to invite the next person. Who's the next person I need to speak to?
I would like you to speak to Vespina, who is an incredible woman. She's wise and she's a craniosacral therapist, but she's much more than that. And I think she's amazing. She'll be a beautiful guest.
Thank you so much, Bridget. Thank you for bringing your wisdom, for bringing your presence, for bringing your light into this conversation. I really appreciate your time. And thank you so much for being here.
Eleftheria, thank you so much for inviting me and asking amazing questions and holding the space for this. And thank you to everybody who's listening and watching.
And if today's conversation really resonated with you, we'd love to hear your biggest takeaways in the comments below. And if you're longing for deeper conversations like these, you're warmly invited to subscribe or to share this episode with another woman who you know would really resonate with us and explore the Root to Rise community. I'll also share all Bridget's links to connect with her further, also in the comments below. And we wish you a really beautiful day further.
Beautiful. I wish that for you too.